Hey, welcome to the Brad Davidson Show. Super excited to be hosting this podcast. My name is Brad Davidson. In this podcast, we're going to start exploring what is truly needed to become resilient, fit, age-defying, and constantly growing in life. I spent the last 20 years of my life working with extreme high performers, consulting with them, training them, speaking to them. I've been pretty quiet in the general public sense for a purpose. I was busy. And I was really focused on the people I was working with, getting them great results, making sure that their bodies were working at the highest levels possible. They had the look they needed, the strength they needed, the durability they needed, and the health they needed to really perform at a high level. And I was teaching this, and it was great. But over time, I've become really sickened by the industry of fitness, nutrition, and what's being given out as the answer to all of our problems. And in this podcast, we're going to go after that. We're going to start digging into the whole platforms around wellness, fitness, nutrition, and challenging them a little bit. Because I believe that they're super lame, actually incredibly superficial. And they're missing out on so much of what is actually needed to get the results you deserve that you're putting all the work in for. I'm so sick and tired of this whole idea around do more and go harder, and that's all it takes. I'm hoping most of you that are listening to this can agree that that just doesn't work. And I've seen it firsthand. I've watched people just killing themselves in the gym, doing massive amounts of volume of exercising, eating super clean, and their bodies are getting worse, not better. And I'll have conversations with these people, and a lot of times what I hear is simply, if I could just go harder and eat cleaner, I would get the results that I deserve. I'm going to be super honest with what I see in the industry and what's being shared by influencers. It's backwards. Actually, those people that are following that advice tend to work out 10 times harder with 10 times more volume than my professional athletes do, and they get a fraction of the results, if any. I don't believe effort is the full answer. Yeah, you got to work hard when you're training, but if you don't understand the lifestyle that's needed around the exercise, if you don't understand how you need to eat to handle and recover the volume of exercise you're doing, it's not going to work. And I'm tired of seeing it not work for people. You see, one of the biggest things I think is one of the biggest problems is muscle mass is your greatest asset. It's the most metabolically active tissue there is. This is just one simple example. If your training program isn't built around maintaining, growing, and doing everything you can to take care of that muscle mass, we got problems. It's actually the fountain of youth, if you want me to be honest with you. Muscle mass is the fountain of youth. Muscle mass is the most metabolically active tissue. Yet most of the programming that I see out there, most of these classes that are being taken, give no support to muscle mass. It's all about how many calories can you burn in a workout. And the more calories you burn, the better the results are supposed to be. So it's all this high intensity of cardio-based stuff, fast repetitions. There's nothing to support the muscle tissue. And you start looking hormonally what happens in these crazy high intensity classes, all this volume of high intensity cardio, what's going on, it is destroying your hormonal profile. It's putting you in what's called a catabolic state. That means muscular breakdown. That means your body is breaking down. You see, I think the biggest enemy to the metabolism is not something like carbs or fats or anything like that. I think it's stress. Yet no one knows how to deal with stress. No one's really even taken into factors. Oh, stress is the problem. Actually, everything you're being told to do is apply more stress. Do more exercise, eat less food. Two great ways to trigger more of a stress response. Yet stress leads to a catabolic state, a breakdown state, specifically with muscle tissue. Have you ever seen that person that's going through hell in life and they're stressed out of their minds and they're just dropping muscle mass like crazy? It happens. Yet we are not being educated. We're not given training protocols that are built around supporting stress. I was just having a conversation with a client earlier today. I'm super frustrated. I'm not getting any results. This last week, nothing's happened. I asked one question. How's your sleep been this week? Oh man, it's been horrible. I didn't even think about that. There's one example, right? One of the most important factors to look great, feel great, perform great, be super healthy, perform at your best, live your longest, is to sleep enough. Yet that's not one of the pieces of advice being given in the fitness world because no one can make money off of that. Hey, go sleep, go rest and sleep. Who's making money off that? There's no gym making money off that. You can't. So what I'm going to share with you in this podcast are the things that are needed to look great, to feel great, to perform at your best. What I don't care about, in all honesty, I truly don't care about how people look. That's a big misnomer. People think the leaner they are, the more fit they are, the more ripped they are, the healthier they are. I'm going to call BS on that because I've worked on a lot of those people. Oftentimes, the sickest people I see are some of the fittest looking, most lean people that you've ever seen. And I have to go in there and fix all the damage they've done from what they've done. Now, I know people want to look great, and yes, I'm going to give you strategies on how to look great. But if you put that as the forefront, as the most important factors, do whatever it takes to lose 30 pounds or look great, you're going to get screwed in the long run. There's one thing we're pretty clear on scientifically in this world, which I'm going to tell you right now, science is pretty pathetic in the world of fitness and nutrition. But it's this thing called the rebound effect. The more stress you put on the metabolism to create a change, the faster the change happens. The bigger the rebound is when you stop, and the harder and the more aggressive you push, eventually you're going to be forced to stop somehow, some way. The body's going to beat you, and I'll teach you over this podcast why that is over time, but the body's going to beat you. And then what it's going to do is it's going to recover and rebound to protect yourself from the next time you go crazy with it again. That's what you see people doing is they do these crazy things, they lose a bunch of weight or they get super lean or whatever, and then they stop and boom, it comes back and then some. Look at The Biggest Loser. That show, I think, has done a massive disservice to our industry. They're literally destroying people in the name of weight loss, and people think this is amazing. People losing all this weight super fast, but as soon as the show stops, it all comes back. And I see it day in and day out, and I know a lot of you have experienced that and are frustrated by that. Because eventually, over time, you do that so often, your body's just going to revolt, and it's not going to let anything fix you until you go in and deal with the damage that's been caused. In 2016, I wrote a book called The Stark Naked 21-Day Metabolic Reset, and honestly changed my life. What started to happen, I got challenged by HarperCollins to write this book, and at the time, the industry was shifting, and my book needed to be a program that was effective in 21 days or less. At that time, I thought it took 90 days to change how the body looked, to get any real result. But they were super clear, like, we want to work with you because of the clientele you work with. We think we can sell your book, but no one's going to buy a program that takes 90 days. So I had to come up with an idea. It was 21 days. So I went to my professional athlete population because I noticed year after year, they always get the best results. And the one thing that was different with those people compared to my general population people was they weren't afraid to take some time off from the weight room, from working out. The first month after season, the one thing they would all do is they would take a break. I'd have them eat a certain way, bring down inflammation, really focusing on rest, recovery, heal up injuries. And those men and women year after year would always get better, more improved, great progression. And that was the one differentiator. So I mimicked that program, tested on 350 real estate agents, and it killed it. The average weight loss was 12 pounds over 3 weeks. And I asked them not to exercise. I asked them to do nothing more than just walking and resting. At that time in my life, I owned a gym. And I'm asking people not to exercise, but we sell exercise. And they were getting much better results than the people that were doing 3 weeks of high intensity exercise. That was my light bulb moment. I found the problem. Stress is the problem. I ended up selling the gym to focus in on this and just really teaching high performers how to recover from the stress they've been under, and then how to create a lifestyle of resiliency around the metabolism and high performance life. If you are somebody that exercises hard or aggressively, you're a high performer. I want to teach you how to implement strategies that will benefit you versus continually harm you. Another example. Most people I talk to believe that carbs are the devil. Carbs are bad for me. I can't get results without carbs. In my world, in my experience, I believe carbs are your best friend if you're a high performer. Now, if you're someone who's lazy, doesn't like to exercise, doesn't have a lot of stress in your life, yeah, carbs are going to kill you. So you should avoid them. If you're sick, you're not going to be exercising a lot, okay? That's another example where carbs can become damaging. But if you're not sick, you're a high performer, you love to exercise, you want to change how your body looks, you got to have a ton of carbs. You have to use them strategically. And throughout this podcast, I'll teach you how to do that. Another thing I see, why are you exercising? Why are you doing this? So often what I see are people are using it to numb, distract from trauma they've been through. And so they're over-exercising, calming their brain down because it's deemed healthy. It's healthier than going out and drinking alcohol or anything like that. But what's happening is it's not fixing the trauma problem underneath. And people are destroying themselves from that. I see it being addiction. There's another example. Addicted people, it creates a lot of dopamine. So a lot of people will get sober and then they'll start over-exercising and that becomes the new addiction. and they are killing themselves by over-exercising, but because it's deemed healthy and a better option, no one's saying anything. I think that's another big problem. I also see people a lot of times thinking that if I just look better, my life is going to get better. If I lose weight or I get more muscular, I get leaner, people are going to be attracted to me more. They're going to love me more. No, it doesn't work like that. I see people get to that point all the time. They finally get to that point, that goal, and their life's exactly the same. No one loves them anymore. They're not getting any more attention than they got before. And then they're like, screw it, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. I think the number one key driving force for longevity and health and using fitness in a safe, effective way is for performance in life, energy in life, performing well at the things you love to do, being durable in life so you can go do the things you love to do safely the way you want to do them versus how your body's allowing you to do them. So these are all the things we're going to jump in and deal with. Okay? We're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. And I'll be honest, there's going to be a lot of things that I say on this that people just don't like. It's one of the reasons why I've kind of held back and not really voiced it in general population worlds or kind of exposed myself to the general population is because I didn't want to deal with the backlash, the arguing, the oh, I don't believe you, you're lying, all that stuff. I have spent years in the trenches with the highest stressed, highest performing people in the world. I've spoken in all 50 states. I've spoken in majority of Canada. I've spoken all over the world on this topic. These have all been private events, not open to the public, because these are people that were hungry for the information that I had. They're open-minded. They realized what they've been doing wasn't working. They were open-minded to hear something new. And it was accepted, and it's worked really well. But I just can't take any more the negativity in the environment, that these influencers that are uneducated. Yes, you look great, but it takes more than looking great to help other people become great. And so often, so many of the things I witness is these people are on drugs. Drugs are very effective. They work very quickly and very well, but there's always a price to pay with them. But I'm constantly seeing people say, oh, follow this program. You'll look like me. If you just train as hard as I train and eat as good as I eat, you can look like me. It's like, no, you can't. You're on a massive amount of drugs. And they'll fight it. They'll argue it. Or they'll go in and manipulate your pictures. I remember one time a client texted me and said, hey, I found this person that I want to look like. I want this woman's butt. And this woman happened to be in a class in the gym I was at, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, this woman doesn't look like her. That picture's been altered. And I took a picture of the woman in the class and said, see, look, her butt doesn't look like that in real life. To me, that's a mess. That's fraud. So I just want to break all this up, explore these topics, and get down to the nitty-gritty. That's what's really needed. You know, with nutrition, it's really interesting. People are they're very emotional to what they believe is right for nutrition. I've always approached nutrition very open-mindedly because what I've learned over the years of working in the trenches with people was that what works for one person can backfire for another. It's very individualized. And I was speaking at an event. It was an event of CEOs. I don't remember what state I was in, but it was about 40 CEOs. I had half a day with them, and I was just teaching them my theories and my ideas and what I've seen work. And at the end of the event, a gentleman came up to me and he said, you know, I'm glad you spoke about nutrition the way that you did because I have a PhD in animal nutrition and I was ready to destroy you if you were going to get up there and say, here's the one only way to do it. He told me that in animal nutrition, it's very different because in animal nutrition, you can take a large quantity of animals. You can control the variables. You control where they live, what they're exposed to, what the elements are like, when they eat, what they eat. They control all the variables. So all these animals in the studies do the exact same thing, live the exact same way. And then, this is horrible to say, but it's the truth. When the study's over, they can then kill the animals and dissect them and see what happens. You can't do this with humans. You can't take a large enough group for a long period of time and control all the variables like that. And you sure as heck can't kill them when it's over. So much of the nutritional science that's out there done on humans is pretty much worthless because you can't control the variables like you can in all other forms of science. Here's another idea that drives me crazy. I learned this from Dr. J. Tita. For the first 60 years of them studying metabolism, they focused on one population. It was college-aged men, boys, men, whatever you want to call them at that point. But for 60 years, they didn't even include women in the studies done on metabolism. They believed it was calories in versus calories out. And a lot of people still want to argue that's all that matters. I disagree. For 60 years, they did not include women in the studies done on metabolism. It was all done on college-age boys. And then that information was taken and given to women and said, okay, here's what you should do for a healthy metabolism. It doesn't work like that. The male metabolism and the female metabolism are very different. They didn't start including females into studies until I think 1994. And it became very clear the female metabolism is very different than the male metabolism. We'll explore that throughout this podcast. And one other area I really want to jump into is the mental emotional side of things. This has a massive impact on our metabolism, our health, our wellness, how happy we are in life. A few months ago, I decided to do some extreme things. I kept hearing these ideas of, for 6 months, just cut out all your bad habits, your distracting habits, those things you use to numb in life. And we all have them. We've all been through trauma. We all have these things that we have in place to try to protect ourselves. So I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped going out. I stopped being around people that drink alcohol. I stopped drinking energy drinks. I stopped drinking soda, like all these things that I would use to numb myself. I also cut back on my exercise volume because that's one thing that I noticed that I have the habit of is if I'm stressed or I'm dealing with some tough stuff in life, my mind spins. I have a hard time shutting it down. It affects my sleep. So I would start using exercise and then, a cocktail or two at night to be able to calm my mind down so I could sleep or so I could focus and get some work done. I'm 4 months in, and it might have been one of the hardest things I've ever done. The last 6-7 years of my life have been pretty tough. I know we all go through hard times, and I went through a very hard period of time. Some major things happened in my life. In the first 2 months of cutting out the alcohol, cutting back on exercise, cutting out the sodas, the energy drinks, all the things I was using to manage my energy and numb my brain, the emotions came big time. I had no way to numb it. I just had to deal with it. It was a scary 2 months. It was really hard. I went through a lot of therapy with it as well. But now at the 4-month mark, my brain's different. My ability to handle life is different. My decision-making is different. My body's looking better than ever. Clearing out the emotional trauma that I had dealt with has done a huge benefit to my body. Huge. I'm about to be 48 and my body fat's like 10%. I'm just as strong or stronger than I was in my 20s and 30s. I feel better. My lab markers are better. It's been phenomenal. But when's the last time someone's told you, hey, you want to get healthy, you want to look better, you want to feel better, go face your demons. Go isolate yourself. Cut out all those things that you're using to numb, to distract, and allow your body to deal with that. It's incredibly beneficial. Hard as hell to do, much harder than going to the gym and working out hard, I'll tell you that much. It's much easier to do that. I wish I wouldn't have waited till almost 48 to do that. I wish I would have had the strength and the courage to do that in my 20s, in my 30s, and then when things would come upon myself to actually deal with them versus run from them. But hey, I'm still learning. I'm always learning. So in review, in this podcast, we're going to focus on all those things. They're going to help you be resilient in life. We're going to focus on those things that will help you really be fit in life. Age-defying in life. I'm 48. I want to live young. I want to live life on my terms, how I want, not by the terms my health and my body limit on me. And I want to constantly be growing in life. What I noticed in my stage of numbing and not wanting to deal with things and just not knowing how to deal with trauma is I didn't grow at all. I went stagnant. And I see a lot of people in that realm. They're stagnant. They're not growing. The passion's gone. The fire's gone. They're using exercise to be super unhealthy. They might be looking better, but they're using it in an unhealthy manner. Not to make themselves better, not to drive growth, not to experience life at a higher level, but to numb from the pain. Or to solve the addiction, or to try to make their lives better in meaningless ways. Fitness, wellness, nutrition, all that is the greatest tool we have to live a great life. But it takes so much more than just working out hard or eating less or any of those silly things. So throughout this podcast, they're going to be short, 15 to 30 minutes every week. We're going to dive into the nitty gritty of what I've discovered working in the trenches. I'm not reading books and regurgitating information. Some of the stuff I'm going to share with you, I found studies to back it up. Some of the stuff, I don't have studies yet. But I really want to help you find the right path. All the programs I'm working on now are focused on this. I'm opening up gyms that have classes based on weightlifting. Weightlifting is the magical answer to a great-looking body, to a healthy metabolism, and to longevity, not high-intensity cardio. That stuff destroys people. I know this because I've worked on so many athletes over the years. We use things like the Whoop, the Oura Ring. We're looking at recovery status. You do one super high-intense workout with a ton of cardio, it takes 4 or 5 days to recover from that. What I found is people can handle 1 or 2 of those a week. Yet I know people that are doing it twice a day, 6 days a week. They're not getting the results they get or they deserve from the effort because they're not understanding what the metabolism really needs. I remember a few years ago, I had a gentleman, I was training my clients at a place where they have a lot of classes as well. And I'm training my client. And over 6 months, he's killing it. He'd lost like 40 pounds, had some muscle going, looking great. But during one of our workouts, this gentleman comes from one of the classes just dripping with sweat, exhausted. And he tells my client, he's like, bro, you need to pick it up. You need to train harder. And this is my client's really first time in the gym. And he's like, oh my God, what are you talking? I thought I was doing everything right. Like, what are you talking about? And I said, whoa. I said, hang on a second. I said, here's what my client looked like 6 months ago. And I showed him a picture. I said, what did you look like 6 months ago? And he kind of cowered down. I was like, oh, he made up some excuse and walked away because I'd been watching him. He hadn't changed at all. He was using that go hard, do more. And it wasn't working. The strategies that work, I'm going to share with you. I'm not going to mislead you. I'm not going to support these ideas that are out there right now because I don't believe they work. They're great ways for gym owners to make money. What I'm going to share with you is what I see us needing to really get the results we deserve, the results you deserve. So if you want to look great, you want to feel great, you want to give yourself the greatest potential to live the longest life possible and live it in a way where you're performing at a high level and enjoying every minute of life, that's the stuff I want to share with you on this podcast. A lot of it will be me sharing my ideas. Over time, I'll start having some of my colleagues, my friends, clients, people that have been down this road, sharing their knowledge, their experience as well to motivate you and to give you better examples and better leeway into the best ways to approach your best self. All right? Thank you. Look forward to taking this journey with you, and I will talk to you next week.